Nothing you have ever experienced can prepare you for the unbridled carnage you're about to witness.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema Podcast, the show where we go back to blockbuster new release wall of our memory, grab a copy off the shelf, pop it in the old VCR, and see what time has done to it. I'm Mike, that's Justin.
Pork bellies.
And together we're here to help you navigate all the landmines littered down memory lane. So Justin, we are well into the new year, but we're looking back to what some would call a Christmas movie.
Can we not shake this yet? My God, everything's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, it's weird. I would have never thought this was a Christmas movie but until the second watching it.
Oh yeah,
the time it's a time of year, but again, does it have the theme of a Christmas movie? Well,
yeah,
not really.
There's a Santa Claus in here.
Yeah, there's snow on the ground, you know. But yeah, we're of course talking about Trading Places. Movie came out in 1983. So we're talking about 40 and a half years ago, which is don't remind me. But yeah, it was directed by John Landis, who we've covered once before in the Blues Brothers movie. Some might know him from The Animal House and American Werewolf in London, Coming to America, which, you know, another Eddie Murphy classic. Produced by Jeffrey Katzenberg, a young lad who was working at Paramount Pictures at the time. And, they gave him a budget, originally $15 million. It was based on a screenplay by Timothy Harris and Herschel Weingrod. And these two guys were, responsible for our, let's say for My Stepmother's an Alien and Space Jam, and ones like Falling Down and Kindergarten Cop, which,
I would say they're to blame.
Yes, yeah, they are. Like I said, there's some hits and misses. It seems that way for most of these movies. We find the writing team has come in there and polished a turd or two. This was probably their star attraction.
Well, we ourselves, Mike, have never put out anything bad, so we can easily criticize others. So,
of course, this goes without saying.
Yes,
we're the Statler and Waldorf. We can just kind of poke and laugh at Fozzie Bear down there.
Exactly.
Something doesn't have to be funny to be good. What'd you think of this show? It was good.
But the idea of the movie came from Tim Harris, who was, like I said, one of the writing team. And I played tennis, and they were bicker a lot. They were, they would play doubles, and he realized while he's playing with these guys were kind of a-holes, and they would bet over the smallest little minutia. They would constantly argue. They're two, doctors that were brothers, and came with this idea. You know what? I want to do a movie about two bickering brothers, and he wanted to do it more as a social commentary with the financial, markets. And that's how it kind of worked out. He was presented it to his writing partner, and like I said, they kind of wanted to base it off like, Frank Capra kind of stories from the 30s and 40s about, social commentary movies, and update it for the 80s.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, they brought it John Landis, who at first they pitched the idea as a movie called Black and White. Landis didn't quite like that idea, even though ironically, he's filming a video for Michael Jackson. Black and White a few years later. So he wanted to call it a little different name, which is how we got Trading Places.
Didn't he offer like $100 to anybody that could come up with a better title or something like that?
I've heard something like that. Yeah,
$100.
This is 83, man.
That's a lot of scratch.
And Landis is famous for assembling his cast, and that's probably the most important part of this movie. So, Justin, who we got in this movie?
Okay, well, this is a star-driven vehicle, mostly by our two leads here. Primarily Dan Aykroyd, who was, I think, ultimately is supposed to be Gene Wilder for this, but he did drop out. And like Eddie Murphy was actually supposed to be Richard Pryor. Yeah. But those two came out. These are pretty good backfills, I think. Dan Aykroyd, of course, who we covered as Elwood Blues and the Blues Brothers, we covered about a year ago to date. Wow, that was a long time ago.
I know, right?
Great in that movie. Also hilarious in other movies like Pearl Harbor, Driving Miss Daisy, Chaplin. This was the height of his popularity, and to see him play straight man is a little weird. But he, as soon as that facade of straight man kind of went away, this movie got really kind of funny. Right beside him, with the lead, is we've got Eddie Murphy. I think this was his second picture, maybe.
Yeah, he just,
Wasn't
I think,
wasn't
finished 48 Hours.
wasn't Eddie Murphy yet, but
Yeah.
we all know Eddie Murphy from such big hits as Norbit, Daddy Daycare, and
Haunted
Vamp-
Mansion was my
yeah,
favorites.
yeah, that's a good one. And Vampire in Brooklyn. We don't want to forget those
He,
gems.
and I hear he likes toes also.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that at all. They're joined by a couple of character actors, longtime Hollywood guys. Ralph Bellamy. This was his 99th movie, Mike. He done 99. But he's a staple on every 70s show. You watch Nick at Night, like we talked about a few days ago. You'll see him there at some capacity. I think he was in Rosemary's Baby as the doctor. I think that's where I remember him best as. Probably just because of my crush on.
And not Disorderlies.
Not Disorderlies. No.
No.
Sorry. Yeah. And he's also in The Boy the Plastic Bubble, starring show favorite John Travolta.
Oh, yes.
Great
Classic.
great TV movie. And he's joined by Don Amici. This was his 49th movie at the time. Again, another longtime Hollywood actor, mostly in television. But we all know him from Cocoon, where he co-starred with Wilford Brimley and got the diabetes. So that was good.
I'm Wilford Brimley, and I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about diabetes.
Also joining the cast here, we have Jamie Lee Curtis, who we all know from Halloween, of course, and A Fish Called Wanda, True Lies. This was one of her earlier films. Wasn't quite sure she was going to get the role because she was mostly known for horror movies, but John Landis used her to host one of his horror film specials and saw some talent there, so he cast her in this role. One of my favorites, Denham Elliott, is in here as the butler. He's too smart for his own good. We all know Denham Elliott from Raiders of the Lost Ark. He was an RAF pilot, Mike, just like
Roald Dahl.
Yeah, Roald Dahl. Yeah. Interesting note for him, Easter egg. Next time you watch him, look for the top of his right thumb because it's not there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he got it cut off in a lawn mowing accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. We don't want to forget about Paul Gleason here. We all know Paul Gleason as the principal in The Breakfast Club. He died in 2016 from mesothelioma, Mike.
Oh, no.
You didn't watch
those... Did he get a lawsuit put in before he died?
I guess not. He must not watched a lot of daytime TV, or he would have had that covered. He also played football at Florida State University, and on his team, his teammates were Burt Reynolds, and Robert Urich. Very good.
Holy crap. That's crazy.
But, you know, what you know about Paul Gleason is if you miss with his Bulls, you get the horns, of course. So, just a couple other smaller characters here. Nicholas Guest, who most of us will remember as Todd, the nosy neighbor from Christmas Vacation.
And why is the carpet all wet, Todd?
I don't know, Margot.
He plays one of the phony fraternity brothers here. I only mentioned him because his brother Christopher is married to Jamie Lee Curtis. So there you go. In a small cameo here, we see Giancarlo Esposito in jail. He's Gus Fring of
almost unrecognizable too.
Yeah. There's also cameos by Frank Oz and Bo Diddley. But my favorite part here was Franken and Davis, Al Franken and Tom Davis here. I did nothing but laugh the minute they hit the screen, just playing goofballs. And there's a small part by James Belushi.
Oh, yeah.
Who starred in this role a year after his brother passed away from a drug overdose.
We'll have to talk about him later.
Yeah. And there's other random people here, but those are the bigger players, Mike. So there's your cast.
Awesome. That's really good, Justin. A couple of notes about the cast. Don Amici was, at first, the casting director thought he was deceased. Landis basically just reached out and called him and said, "Hey, heard you were dead. You want to be in a movie?" And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Why haven't we seen you for 10 years?" He said, "Nobody called me." So that's how he got the Abe Vigoda treatment there.
Nice.
Yeah. And like you say, Frank Oz was in there. He was also a police officer in the Blues Brothers that checked out old Jake as he was leaving the penitentiary.
Yeah, same role here. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was weird. What's cool about this, the Easter egg and is Winthrop's prison number or jail number in this movie is the exact same as Jake Blue's.
Same as Joliet Jake's, right?
747-450-58.
Nice.
Thought that was a nice little
Nice touch. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor were supposed to be the original twosome for this. Richard Pryor had just finished having a freebasing accident with cocaine, and
And that happens.
yeah, he joked about it later.
Yeah.
How his head was on fire and he was running down the street, and made me think that when Michael Jackson was doing a Pepsi video and his hair caught on fire, and you got the old Coke Pepsi debate going on. So it was ironic that here's where Eddie Murphy kind of stepped in. It had a $15 million budget and it was released in June 8th of 1983. So right there in the middle of the summer, it was 2 weeks after Return of the Jedi and about 10 days or so before Superman 3. So right kind of smack in the middle, you had a good comedy movie.
Richard Pryor chose that over this.
Yeah, I know. There's your choice, man.
Okay.
I know. And
each his own.
Yeah. 1983,
good year.
Huge movie. Just movie year, music year. I was kind of looking through and oh my gosh, the movies that came out in 83 were ridiculous. You had obviously Superman 3, Return of the Jedi, but you had Meaning of Life. You had 2 James Bond movies. You had Octopussy and Never Say Never Again.
2 in the same year?
2 in the same year.
Wow.
Terms of Endearment, which cleaned up on the Oscars, obviously.
Yeah.
Flashdance, Right Stuff, The Big Chill, Scarface, A Christmas Story, Risky Business, and one of your favorites, The Outsiders.
Wow. I think you just routed off next season's cast list there.
It's crazy. It's just is like just two. I mean,
wow.
Why can't we have another year like that, you know? Price of gas at the time was $1.16 a gallon. Movie ticket could run you about $3.15. You had some famous deaths that year, like David Niven, Muddy Waters, playwright Tennessee Williams, Dennis Wilson, drummer for the Beach Boys, who his drowning wasn't as mysterious as Natalie Wood, but it was there was some mystery behind it. Then you had Paul Bear Bryant, famous Alabama football coach and Texas A&M coach who died that year also. And we usually talk about deaths. So I wanted to include some births. And when I saw this list, I felt really old, Justin.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's.
Yeah, I just picked out 5 of some of the names you might know.
This is gonna hurt.
This is painful. Emily Blunt was born in 83.
Very nice.
Henry Cavill, 83 baby.
Oh, Superman.
Chris Hemsworth,
another superhero.
I know. Donald Glover.
There you go.
And then Adam Driver. These are all
wow.
Like I said, I heard this name. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I know what.
We're 13 years older than all of them.
I know.
And they're grown-ups.
Yeah, I know, right? Some of the big events from 83, cultural events, let's say. Last episode of MASH was on the air. Biggest event on TV until like the 2010 Super Bowl. Compact disc players were first made available.
Nice.
You get one for $1,000, Justin. So not too bad a price.
Yeah.
David Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear.
That bastard. Did it come back?
Eventually.
Okay,
then they had to clean it up a little bit and redo the copper, but it's good.
He's lucky.
Yeah. Sally Ride, first American woman in space. And,
that's right.
You remember the Mustang Sally song? It was played accordingly.
Of course.
And Mario Brothers, first released in Japan, 1983.
Oh, wow.
Super Mario Bros. Kiss, the band rock group Kiss, appear on MTV.
I'm familiar, yeah.
Without the makeup. First time anybody's seen.
So we got to see how handsome they really are.
And yes, and another musical event happened, Justin. I'm sure you were close to your little pillow with these guys on it. Menudo Mania struck the U.S. in 1983 as they arrived from Puerto Rico to bring us their musical stylings.
You know, Menudo is interesting because they would kick members out if they got too old, right?
Yes.
Was that the rule?
It was just a rotating group of guys. And it's kind of like the Mickey Mouse Club, like there were various members that you can, like Ricky Martin, as a matter of fact. But
that's right, yeah. They
would just kind of change out every few years, and that, it was
well, their long-lasting legacy of music. That one song.
Yeah, that one.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, and another movie note of interest I found for 1983 was that there were more R-rated movies than ever released that year until that date. And
good for them. I know,
right?
That's why all those movies were good, because they were made for adult, grown-up audiences, right?
Grown-ups. And sometimes, a 12 or 13-year-old might
Yeah,
actually sneak in and see one of those, accompanied by an adult, of course.
yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay, Justin, here comes our trivia corner
Okay.
music.
Uh-oh.
Actually, I'll tell you what. Let's do some. These are just as good as the movie list was.
Okay.
Music might have been a step above. We have some
All
of the
right.
most iconic 80s albums that came out that year. You just name the artist. If you don't, if
It's
you know it, don't even bother
it's
naming it.
not
Just nod your
not
head.
not
I'll know
my
what you
not my
mean.
strength, but I'll give it a whirl. Like,
All right. We had Color by Numbers, a classic.
is that Culture Club?
That is Culture Club. Good job.
Okay.
Kill 'Em All. This was the first album for this group from the Netherlands.
That's Metallica, right?
That is correct. Kilroy Was Here.
Oh, that's got to
Probably.
be prog rock band from Chicago. That's Styx.
That's right. Yeah, it probably ruined them, but hey, they released it in '83. You had the original. This one's in the title, but Violent Femmes came out with their debut album.
One of the greatest albums of all time.
Yeah.
Easily.
One of Patrick Bateman's favorite albums, Sports, also came out this year.
Is that Huey Lewis in the News, right?
That's right. Yeah,
at
Heart and
that.
Soul.
Or the doppelganger to the receptionist at the Nakatomi Towers.
You got that? If you got that dimple in your chin, man, you go a long way. Synchronicity came out.
It's Police, right?
That's right. Pyromania.
It's by Def Leppard, one of my least favorite hard rock bands.
And this one was one of my favorite ones, but it's Reach the Beach. This one I had in my cassette, and I played it over and over again. It was one of my favorites.
That's a little deeper cut, Mike. I'm not quite sure about that one.
That was The Fix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had the song "One Thing Leads to Another."
Oh,
and,
yeah,
just chef's kiss. And then ones I won't even ask you about. Everyone knows this one. G-Force came out that year too, and everybody knows that one. Because I didn't even want to make that a question. So
everybody except me.
Kenny G.
Oh, okay.
G-Force, come on, man.
I turned in my white man card.
And that's a joke. But yeah, so that good year laid out there for you. So
okay. Well,
I think we're ready to
certainly a different time, especially, some of the jokes in this movie are 1983 jokes for sure.
Yeah.
They're not 2023 jokes, but yeah.
It shows its age. It's
yeah.
I forgot to mention it's also the same year that Porky's 2 came out. So that might be why we see some raunchiness in some of the jokes.
Well, there were so many unanswered questions from Porky's. I'm so glad they kind of came up with another story and answered all those. So.
Yes. I think it was the next day, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
All right, Justin. I think I'm ready for
ready
to watch this movie. Let's do it. Hit the button.
There you go.
Our movie opens with some rain and wintry scenes of Philadelphia, and it's kind of
looks like turn of the century Philadelphia. My God, so old.
Yeah, some of the cars and some of the people, they're good working folk of Philadelphia, and
very tidy.
Yeah, overlaid, you kind of get the Marriage of Figaro playing, and it's kind of neat. You get to see the Rocky 2 statue out there, Rocky 3 statue outside the Spectrum.
Is that Rachmaninoff, Mike?
Yes. Thank you, Dodo. I love that. I meant to mention that on our Willy Wonka one. I can't believe her name was Dodo.
This is a musical lot.
Rachmaninoff.
But yeah, the Rocky statue, which should have been out in front of the art museum, wasn't. That's another story. It starts off with Dan Aykroyd lying in his bed with his sleep mask on. He's wakened by his butler, who serves him breakfast and lays out his clothes. And he has a good feeling about pork bellies, apparently.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, I know, right? Later, he's greeted at Duke and Duke as Mr. Winthorpe by everyone, and like I said, he has that hunch. Then we later see the Duke boys, not Bo and Duke, but Mortimer and Randolph Duke, who have this massive mansion that they come out of. They're very dismissive of the help, and who greets them kindly, it seems like.
Yeah.
And they're kind of instantly presented as pretty stingy fellows,
Yeah.
They drive off in their mansion, and that's when we see them arrive at the club, and that's when we're introduced to Eddie Murphy. It was a street beggar outside the club. It's the Heritage Club.
Yeah.
And his name is Billy Ray Valentine, and he uses a cart and pretends to be blind, crippled, a Vietnam War veteran.
No legs whatsoever, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he's in this cart, and he's not your average homeless guy when he uses a Porgy and Bess reference. So that was
Yeah, I thought that was odd. Yeah.
that's when you know something's a little bit. He's not your average bear here. He bumps into Winthorpe outside the club and is arrested there. And it's then that the Dukes come up with a wager between Randolph and Mortimer, where Randolph picks environment or nurture, and Mortimer picks breeding or nature. And I believe that
the age-old argument, right?
Exactly. They believe they can take everything away from Winthorpe, and he will turn to crime. That's what Randolph believes. And then we see Penelope, who is Winthorpe's fiance, and they have a little dating scene at his house, and they act like you would think rich snobby people would act.
Yeah, they got that down, Pat.
Yeah, they enough said about that. And as the Dukes kind of put their bet in the promotion here, they bail out Billy Ray, and they approach him with a special project they want to hire him for, and that's when the trading kind of begins. It's they put him in a Harvard jacket and tie, and he takes over Winthorpe's apartment, his butler, and his job. And Winthorpe is set up at the club with 3 marked $50 bills, and they're planted in his pocket by your friend Mr. Beeks, who played by Paul Gleason.
I heard G. Gordon Liddy was up for this role too.
Yeah, I did hear that. It was pretty. Yeah, it's.
And I like
just
how
would have been weird.
Mr. Beeks dressed like every NHL coach from 1970.
Oh yeah, with the hair to match.
With the hair to match, yeah.
Yep.
Withstand a nuclear blast. The hair, and the suit.
Yeah, and he's booked with at the police station, and Beeks approaches the cop, Frank Oz, and he has angel dust planted in his pocket.
That's a great dated reference to angel dust.
It is PCP, angel dust. Yeah, it's like okay. Which the rest of the movie or the next few scenes, everybody mistakes it for heroin. Which
I like how he actually gets offended that it's not.
Yes, it's not heroin. It's angel dust.
It wasn't heroin. It was angel dust, PCP, and I never even had my hands on.
Angel dust was always the drug they scared us with at school.
Yeah,
that's the drug that you would take, and then you would put your baby in the microwave and eat it.
Right. Yeah. You had no idea what happened to her afterwards. You just
California cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
And Billy Ray is, meanwhile, he becomes disgusted by these people he invites from his club that he goes to, and he has them come over to his house, and then we have the great party scene. This is where we get the great line of "Who put the Kools out on my rug?" Oh.
Get here! Hold up! Hey! Who been putting out their Kools on my floor? Who has been putting out their Kools on my floor?
Just credit Eddie Murphy for keeping that line in the movie, by the way, because that was believe it or not, at the time was a debated topic.
Oh wow!
Kind of see him turning a little bit,
I think he just turns immediately. It's like he gets a little bit of responsibility. And he just I don't automatically.
He learns the even retire up to his bedroom.
Yeah.
And then next scene, Beeks sets up Jamie Lee Curtis, who plays a prostitute named Ophelia, and she times it where she interrupts Winthorpe's reunion with Penelope, and of course that ends that. And he finds out right after that he can't go back to his house. He's turned away by his butler Chapman, played by Denham Elliott.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the bank and finds out all his credit cards are repossessed. Ophelia takes him in based on the fact that his hands are smooth, and she believes that he really does have money, and she's going to use him as her investment and have him live at her house. Then meanwhile, the next day, Billy Ray learns about commodities. Justin, he showed some breakfast foods in front of him: orange juice, bread, bacon, and they all represent a commodity that the Duke boys make all their money from. And in one morning, he's able to learn the commodity market, and
he's a quick study.
he also has a great hunch on pork bellies that makes the Duke some money. So there you go. Just like that. Winthorpe, meanwhile, goes back to the club. We have to endure a terrible Glee Club kind of song from the Four Guys. he strikes out with those people, and he goes upon his watch to Bo Diddley and gets $50 from it.
I'll give you $50 for.
50 bucks? No. This is a Rochefoucauld, the thinnest water-resistant watch in the world.
He's and does a side mention of possibly purchasing a gun, but I'm not.
How much is that gun?
Yeah, I love that line.
How much for the gun?
He sees Billy Ray at the Duke's at a fine restaurant, and I think that really sets him off. You just see the anger in his eyes.
Yeah, through the glass outside.
And so he later appears at their Christmas party in a very, very dirty Santa suit. And it's great because he just starts stealing food from their buffet. He starts drinking straight from the bottles of liquor.
Like a whole slab of salmon.
A whole salmon. Oh, yeah. When he eats out in the bus in front of those two ladies, that's just great. They just
ripping the skin off.
I know.
But
while he's there, he tries to set up Valentine with drugs, and he's caught because he's really dumb at what he does. He's not used to this, and pulls out a gun, and he flees, just kind of brandishing it at Billy Ray and other workers as he runs away and guzzles down some more liquor. And I like after he gets to a point, he doesn't even answer. He just growls. I just love it.
Guttural sounds like he's gone feral.
Yes. And that little sound of that bell from his Santa outfit as he's walking around, it's just kind of creepy.
When he hits the bottom, I that was the funniest part for me. He just goes. Oh yeah.
Even the gun he uses doesn't work. And, it's just like he just throws it and it fires, of course.
Yeah,
it's great. Billy Ray, meanwhile, goes to the restroom there at the office and smoking one of the planted joints. And as he's in there, he overhears the Duke settling their wager, and $1. For that, Justin, just
$1. Yeah.
And he catches up to Winthrop and finds out where he lives somehow, and he tells him about the Duke's experiment, and so it's all revealed to Winthrop. And the next morning they start hatching a plan, and I love the fact that the orange juice future is being delivered is like a top news scene on TV.
They break into the news.
Yes, it's a big story. They even show Beeks, the Paul Gleason character, with his little suitcase, kind of handcuffed him like Jake Blues style, to his arm. Winthrop wants to just shoot him with shotguns, but cooler heads prevail, and they decide to set up this plot where they're going to meet Beeks on a train. And this is where it's this is a fever dream kind of scene for me in this movie, where they are on the train.
Marx Brothers here. It's just crazy for about 20 minutes.
It is, yeah. There's a side plot set up with a gorilla. We see the Saturday Night Live team of Franken and Davis is two drunk, luggage carriers.
That was supposed to be Bob and Doug McKenzie, but that didn't go through. So
no, as well.
Next best thing.
Yeah, and we get to see Jim Belushi with a gorilla wearing a gorilla costume and being annoying, which that's kind of was a precursor to his career.
His MO, yeah.
That's right. We get to see Aykrord in blackface. Eddie Murphy is a Cameroon exchange student, and Jamie Lee Curtis is a Austrian/Swedish exchange student.
Yeah, she couldn't do the accent.
She can't do a German accent apparently, so she did a Swedish one. But she's wearing lederhosen, so. Beeks figures it out, and he's going to do something with him in the back of the train.
A Mimi cigar smoke. No more Swedish meatballs there, Tootsie.
But he gets conked on the head by the gorilla. And they put the gorilla suit on him, and he ends up in the jail cell with the real gorilla. So there you go.
And that has feelings for him.
Yes, strong feelings.
Wrong feelings.
They meet who they think is Beeks in the underground parking garage. It's really Eddie Murphy disguised in darkness of a trench coat. So they get what they want, and then we get to our next kind of Act 3 final scene there at the Commodities Exchange, and it's actually set in New York. So they go there, and it's odd to see the World Trade Center again, but
featured even. It's weird.
Yeah, it's where the Commodities Exchange was at the time there.
Yeah.
There's one in Chicago, but they weren't allowed to film there. So they decided to do it in New York. And it was set up in it's kind of weird because it looks like it's underground, but it's actually between the 50th and 60th story at the time of the World Trade Center. One of them, I don't know if it was one or two, but it's a big 3-story area up there, and it was really kind of cool. I didn't know that
Wow.
myself until I
Yeah.
read it. It's like, but yeah, so what the Dukes are trying to do is corner the market. Should I explain that at all, or
Uh,
do you think most people would understand that? Is that
I,
kind of a
I would prefer like Margot Robbie in a hot tub explaining this, like she did in The Big Short.
yes?
But they're shorting the stock, right?
They're shorting the stock. Yeah, they actually borrow money through margin call, and are able to buy or book. Commodities are different than a stock. You actually book a contract for a future. That's why you hear them sometimes called futures instead of commodities.
Yeah.
And the commodities exchange, you can do silver, gold, for a lot of different materials. Like we were talking about earlier, wheat, orange juice, which is what this is frozen concentrated orange juice.
Yeah, that's
And
weird.
what they do is they borrow a whole bunch of contracts and at a certain amount. And at the stroke of 9 a.m., they have their guy who's out there, and he's trying to buy as much of these contracts from everyone on the floor as possible. It looks like a mod. I never understand. I always used to, even as a kid, you would see these things from like the floor, the stock exchange,
Yeah, I'm
the
still not quite
commodities, or the American Stock Exchange there in Chicago, and it's a frenzy.
like
To see people with papers and stuff.
who are they talking to? How do they know they're heard? Who's listening to them?
Yeah,
I don't get
exactly.
to this
I
day. I don't
still
get
don't
it.
get it. And you hear those two guys in the washroom who are like going over their maladies. Like one says, "How's your hypertension, Bill?" Well, I just love it. How's your ulcer going there, Gary?
Just a
I love that
mess.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the bell rings and they all come running out of the
Like
toilet.
sprinting out of the toilets.
Yeah. So, like I said, at night, the stroke of 9, trading begins. The Duke's guy is buying up everything he can. He's in there. They realize something's going on with this guy, and the Dukes are cornering the market. Which, at the time, cornering the market basically was came from the Hunt brothers back in the late 70s that were trying to get all the silver at one time, and that was
Uh-huh.
a big, big news story. I remember when I was a kid. I remember my dad talking about it because we were both big into. Well, he was big in the stock markets, and it was kind of a way to like buy everything based on almost an inside knowledge. This is kind of where insider trading comes from,
Yeah.
but based on that phony stock report, the Dukes are buying all this stock or books. They're booking these contracts based on the fact that the price is going to go up. And when it gets to 142, that's when Aykrord and Murphy, Valentine and Winthrop, sell all of their contracts they have that they had borrowed. So at 100, and everybody on the floor who thinks it's still going to go up is in a frenzy to buy, buy. And then what's cool is the actual report comes on TV and everybody goes silent. And then it's this really funny scene. It's just like this old guy comes on. He's putting on his glasses. He's taking his time.
He hasn't even read the report yet.
No, he hasn't even read the report.
Gonna read it live on air. It's so important.
And then he says, "Well, orange crop looks good this year." And then everybody starts going in their frenzy again. They're like, "Sell, sell, sell!" And the price just skyrockets down from 142, and the whole way's going down. Winthrop and Valentine they're buying back what they had sold at 142, and
Yeah.
it's just crazy, and it goes all the way down to 29. And meanwhile, the Duke's guy is like just getting buried. Nobody will listen to him. Valentine and Winthrop are purposely ignoring him and not buying back his bookings, and so the Dukes are basically left with all these contracts they have to pay out at that high number, and they lose $394 million in that 1 hour. And it's their reaction's so funny because you get both Mortimer and Randolph like, turn it back on. And poor Randolph has a heart attack, and they're like telling Mortimer and Randolph, you got to sell everything right now. You know how this works.
Yeah.
You have to forfeit your assets. You have to forfeit everything from Duke and Duke. You have to give up your seat on the exchange. And I love Mortimer's reaction when he says, "Well, your brother's having a heart attack," and Mortimer's like, "F him." I love that. And what's interesting about that is Don Amici apologized for using the F word.
Oh yeah, he never used that word in real life.
Yeah, and he apologized to the crew, and he would only do one take of it. He didn't want to ever say it again. But at the same time, I wondered if he apologized for using the N word earlier. But that's
no problem with that one.
I was going to say that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So we'll leave that where it is.
There it is.
And then our final denouement scene is the heroes kind of enjoying themselves on St. Croix.
Yeah.
and we get to see him on a boat and on the beach, and even old Chapman, Denham Elliott, gets his own butler there. So,
Yeah.
Q get a job of the silhouettes, and the credits roll.
There you go.
Yeah, and it had a decent opening. Got $7 million for the first weekend, and
It's pretty good.
eventually ended up as domestic for 90, and worldwide it got 121 million. It didn't have a, I guess because people were still kind of under like a Return of the Jedi kind of wave. It didn't
Yeah.
get a huge opening, but it was one of those movies that just had legs to it, and it had a lot of holdovers, and
Yeah.
I think it was in the theaters a long
The
time.
holdover. I miss those. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As far as awards, it got a nomination for original score for Elmer Bernstein, who had also done some other John Landis movies, but lost to Yentl, which was another
Oh,
album that came out that year. Barbara Streisand and
Papa.
her loveliness. There you go. And poor Mandy Patinkin, who
Oh, poor Mandy.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
But and BAFTA awards went to Jamie Lee Curtis and Denham Elliott for supporting roles. So
oh,
that
good.
was,
Okay.
that was at least something they got from it.
Yeah. Besides the gratuitous nudity here, she was pretty good.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was it wasn't as big a role as I thought. I'd
Yeah.
forgotten she got nude until I resaw it. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm surprised. It surprised me a bit. I guess,
Yeah.
since this is really her first movie since, a lot of the horror
Yeah.
kind of scream
Right.
queen movies. There is talk of a sequel of this movie. It's been a talk for a long time.
Yeah.
As late as like December of 2023, it's still in the discussion stage. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, they did that add-on scene in Coming to America, right? Were you going to get to that?
Yeah. The Duke boys appear, as beggars, and Prince Akeem kind of throws some money at him, and it's kind of a funny scene because they say we can get started back over again, Mortimer.
Yeah.
It's a really funny scene, and now, like I said, that was another John Landis movie, so it was
Yeah.
nice to see him in that.
Yeah.
As far as impact for the movie itself, the Eddie Murphy's career exploded after this movie. He was, I don't know if you remember the stand-up specials he had on HBO, like Raw and
Oh, yeah.
Delirious, but those were
Yeah.
huge. And then the movies he was in after this, like 48 Hours and
Beverly Hills Cop. Yeah.
Beverly Hills Cop was huge, and Golden Child, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah.
Aykroyd had left the stench of Dr. Detroit, which was a movie that came out before this, and I think it helped him get a lot more roles after this, and it kind of took away that stigma of being the second banana when he
Yeah.
was with Belushi.
Sure.
Jamie Lee Curtis thinks this is the most important movie of her life because it got her out of that pigeonhole or stereotype of being a
Yeah,
horror
'cause she could
movie
be a
chick.
screen queen for her whole life otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said it before, Don Amici got him in like movies like Cocoon and other, I think he was in like Home in that's what's the Incredible Journey. He was like the voice of the dog in that
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
And it revived his career. Like I said, Ralph Bellamy got to be in Disorderly, so it wasn't all bad. We do have to thank John Landis for unleashing Jim Belushi on us. I
Yeah.
know he wanted to kind of do a homage to John Belushi, but he
Right.
didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
That was kind of I appreciate that.
And he was in a gorilla suit most of the time. Let's be honest. Let's be fair.
That's true. Yeah, but it later, like I said, at the very start, it was regarded as a Christmas film, and
Yeah.
it's crazy how many lists and publications listed as it's on some top 5, top 10s as like the best Christmas movie. It was cited in official U.S. legislation in a 2010 insider trading commodities bill.
Uh-huh.
And they installed a clause in this bill that was called the Eddie Murphy rule. It was based totally on the fact it was like a reaction to insiders trying to corner the market on certain things, and so that was kind of cool. And if you want to look it up, the Duke boys lost the equivalent of today's value of about $1.2 billion in that 1 hour of trading.
Wow.
So there you go. That's that's the movie. And Justin, I know you saw this probably in '83 or maybe a little bit after on HBO or something.
Yeah.
And, tell us what you thought when you saw it, and what did
Okay.
you think of it this time?
Well, to be honest, I saw bits and pieces of this in my youth, mostly the gratuitous nudity scenes. But
Of course.
I saw this movie like the tail end of it in college. So to be honest, I don't really have a good reference point for my first viewing, other than just these scattered clips and views. But I knew the premise of the movie, and I knew that. But watching this for the show was my first like full like start to finish watch of this thing. So I enjoyed it for the most part. Some of the jokes don't hit, or maybe they did at the time, but there were some protracted silences here for me for a while. There's some parts, some scenes that were kind of slow, kind of dragged on a little bit. But I think the social satire is what's still at play here, and I think that's probably the biggest element I took away from it. This
That
disdain.
never gets
Yeah.
outdated. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much, with the one percenter movement now, it's probably more prevalent now than it was even in the go-go 80s when the stock market was, doing what it was doing. So that's still relevant, still kind of holds through. Some of the jokes, some of the humor, not so much. I don't want to use
Yeah.
the traditional politically correct stuff, but there's some terminology here that at the time was not frowned upon, but now it sounds shocking because we've been turned into these like mealy little mush mouths that don't like to hear that stuff. So that was a little
Yeah.
off-putting. Some of the language they use, some of the jokes, some of the sources of the humor were a little weird. But
So, yeah.
I generally enjoyed it, particularly like the last act when everything, they marked their revenge and their plot to get back. That was just like silly 30s screwball comedy
Yeah, like you
stuff.
said, yeah, the Marx Brothers kind of train sing like you're talking
With my affinity for the Three Stooges, Mike, I feel I have
about.
to point out that this is essentially the story hoi polloi of the
Oh yeah.
1935 Stooges episode where it's a nature versus nurture argument where these two professors have a bet that they can turn the Stooges into gentlemen. And it's probably the most violent Stooges episode ever.
That's saying
Mo
a
was
lot for the Stooges
like
too.
must have been on B12 or something because he hit everybody anywhere all the time with this one. The gorilla suit, I'm always a sucker for anything in a gorilla suit.
Right.
Again, there's another Three Stooges episode called They Stooge the Congo where Curly spends the majority of it in a gorilla suit that looks very much like the one in this movie. And of course, Mike, there's a real gorilla on screen too, so you don't know which one's which. Uh,
Yeah.
back
It's
when,
weird too that they
yeah,
had a guy playing that in the gorilla suit, believe it or not.
yeah,
He actually has
yeah.
a credit for that.
Yeah, you kind of look kind of look like the 1977 King Kong a little bit.
A little bit.
Anytime a gorilla eating bananas in a movie, I'm laughing. Anybody in a gorilla suit, I'm laughing. But just this frenetic pace to it at the end, and then Franken and Davis's role. They're arguing about who gets to drive the forklift. It's,
Yeah.
I
That
mean,
got
these guys get dialogue, and they're not even part of the movie. I mean, it's just
yeah.
here, say something funny.
I mean, you had Steven Stucker from Airplane in there for
Yes,
like
that's right. I
10
meant to mention
seconds. And
that.
it's like I
Yeah.
thought he had more to do in the
It,
movie, but then you get so many scenes of Franken and Davis. It's like, why are
yeah.
we seeing these guys so much?
Steven Stucker's like reprimanding them for for
Yes.
teasing the gorilla. I mean, you had me at teasing the gorilla,
Uh,
but overall, I enjoyed this. I don't know if I would like watch it again because I think it's a one and done for me. But I enjoyed like even though the humor was dated, I still enjoyed like the time capsule element of it. And it just
yeah.
it was a good watch. So I probably have it incomplete on my grumpy meter, but I probably give it a 3.5 out of 5. So that's my take
Okay.
on it.
Yeah. I'm kind of like you. I didn't see it when I was 12, but I did see it soon afterwards, just like a year or two later. So it had to, it wasn't dated for me at the time. And like I said, I kind of was interested in the whole stock market angle of it. Like I said, commodities, even today, 40 something years later, it's still a mystery to me.
Yeah,
It was even the, I read an interesting like story about how the screenwriters had to have like told to them over and over again by professionals in the market
yeah.
how the commodities work. And even after, these were the screenwriters. Of course, Billy Ray Valentine picked it up in one morning,
Oh yeah.
but but like you say, it shows its age. It's hard for a comedy social satire movie to not reflect the time it's in and
Yeah.
have dated bits in it. The language, what I would call unnecessary nudity, helps date it a little bit to that 80s time. Like I
Well,
said,
that's what they did. They just
if you're competing with movies like Porky's 2 and
yeah.
Losing It, I think was another one that came out that year, and
Yeah,
Risky
Tom Cruise.
Business,
Yeah.
you have to have some
That was the expectation almost.
titillation in it. Yeah, you
Yeah.
almost had to do that. The nature versus nurture thing is very dated now too, which more people kind of falling into the nature camp as far as
Yeah.
discoveries in genetics and everything. There's some people today would probably look at it and go, it's obviously nature, and anybody who has well, I'm not gonna say anybody, but if you're like me and have two kids that were raised in the same household and you see how differently they came out, you, you would go,
Yeah.
you would lean towards the nature. But it's the idea of the markets too, the like stock markets being just like a playground for the elite and rich
Yeah.
is hard to see that now in 2024 because yes, most everybody has money in a stock account or fund or invest online. You know, you have people that just do it for fun, like day traders or using
Yeah.
the Robinhood kind of app. You know, it's just not everybody's in commodities, you know, but thanks largely to the internet, you got people that can do a lot of this trading on their own.
Yeah.
The days of Ivan Boesky and the Hunt brothers is kind of old fashioned, at least they say it's impossible to corner the market, but it can still be done. So we have that at least to look forward to if someone's greedy enough in the stock market, which
Yeah.
which does happen.
Occasionally.
Um,
Yeah.
but what I like about the movie was the performances. You know, you have just wonderful performances by Aykrord and Murphy and the great directing. I mean, I think that's the pacing and directing. The train scene aside, it's just really well
Yeah.
done. The expressions Eddie Murphy can put on his face and just draw you right into the scene.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. I mean, you can see why he became such a star after this movie because it was just so, and even Denham Elliott is his role in this is he has to like do these expressions on his face, like even when he has to shut out Winthorpe from the house, and
Yeah.
it's just just a little motion of his face. It's just so well done,
Yeah.
and for me, that kind of made it. That's the things we've talked about this before in the podcast. It's even if the movie looks dated, the special effects look kind of corny and trashy. It's the performances and the directing that can really save a movie
Yeah.
like this, and make it rewatchable for many years later.
That's what inherently gives these movies of this era a leg up on modern stuff. Sorry, I'm getting a little grumpy here, but
no, that's okay.
they
That's okay.
they always have that. Or there's more substance to these movies. I mean,
Yeah,
I challenge anybody to question that.
some people could say that even this movie wasn't original. It was basically taking the Mark Twain story of the Prince and the Pauper
Yeah.
and setting it 100 years later in the 1980s in America in Philadelphia. And you can say, well, that's not original, but look what it's done with it. It's just this is totally transformed that idea of switching roles and just made it to this great movie. So
Yeah.
I don't know how to rate a star for this. I would say 4 out of 5 stars. I would deduct half a star just for that train scene alone. But like I said, it's that John Landis wackiness that he has to have. You can think of every movie he has and has to have some kind of little thing like
it was
that.
the last 10 minutes of the Blues Brothers.
Yeah, exactly. So with that theme in mind of trading places, we wanted to go with You Just Made the List, pal. Honors to Paul Gleason, and go with some movies that also have that kind of switching bodies, switching roles, switching places, and we came up with a few of those. And Justin, I would like to hear what you have for one of your movies.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna start a little unconventional. It's technically a swapping role thing. I'm gonna go with Being John Malkovich from 1999. Remember that the plot of this movie was a very bizarre movie written by one of my most favorite writers of all time. You go to this 13 and a half floor of this building. You could climb through a little door, and you would enter the body of John Malkovich for a amount of time, and then you would get kicked out on the Jersey Turnpike.
Yes.
And our main characters here, Cameron Diaz particularly, and John Cusack, they become obsessed with living that life, getting inside John Malkovich's body and living life through his eyes, and just very existential comedy, just completely crazy. You can't really describe this movie; it's just really too weird to describe. But the premise is that they're inside John Malkovich, and it's just a great little kitschy movie that I think everybody should try. So, Being John Malkovich from 1999.
Is it like Dennis Quaid being inside Martin Short's head in inner space?
That's a good one. Yeah. That's a very good one. Yeah.
That's not my choice, though.
Charlie Kaufman is the screenwriter.
That's it. Yeah.
So thank you.
He did the Nicolas Cage one too, right? The adaptation.
And Schenectady, and the short-lived Chris Elliott series Get a Life on Fox.
Oh, I remember that.
Incredibly good. Yeah. So
Chris Elliott, one of the underrated guys
just
in the comedy world.
Funny. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good, Justin. My first choice is going to be A Man with Two Brains. It's actually a movie that came out the same year, and as soon as I saw that it came out in '83, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it was one of my favorite movies at the time because I watched it on HBO multiple times. Not for the gratuitous nudity that it had in there, but
No, of course not.
Of course not. Like I said, another movie that had to show some boobage. But yeah, it has Steve Martin in it as a
Inspector Clouseau?
yeah, but he wasn't eating a hamburger this time. He was
Sorry.
trying to find a brain he could use. It's kind of a Frankenstein satire,
Uh-huh.
rip off of. But he plays this Doctor Herfer, who goes to try to find a brain he can put into another body, basically do a brain transplant. Ends up with some shenanigans, and he ends up putting it into his really mean girlfriend, played by Kathleen Turner. Funny movie. It's kind of silly and stupid,
Yeah.
but I liked it, and it involved a brain that he could talk to that was still in the jar. And he ended up falling in love with the brain. And there's some funny scenes of him dating the brain and taking out on rowing trips and stuff. But anyway, all's well that ends well. And that would be my first choice. Man with Two Brains.
That's a great one. Yeah. My next choice is a Francis Ford Coppola joint. That people don't really talk about this movie. I'm going to go with the Peggy Sue Got Married.
Oh, yeah. Kathleen
From
Turner.
1986. And the premise here is that Kathleen Turner goes to her high school reunion, has a bit of a nervous breakdown, and kind of has a heart attack. And when she wakes up, she's back in her body, but as an older woman in her high schooler body.
So Nicolas Cage.
Yeah,
is
and
the boy.
she's,
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage is her boyfriend and previously estranged husband that she.
Yes.
It's just about this fable about knowing then what you know now, and
Yeah.
she goes back to as a high school student and tries to do everything differently. This is from the 80s to the 50s, so social mores and gender
Yeah.
roles and things were kind of block fixed, and this just a real kind of neat little time capsule movie. My favorite scene is where her husband, played by Nicolas Cage, is a struggling musician, and she goes back and gives him the lyrics to "I Love You" by the Beatles. Yeah, 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 and he rewrites them. Ooh, ooh, ooh. But he ends up being a deadbeat. But it's just a very poignant, very heartfelt film that didn't get a lot of attention,
Mhm.
especially being a Francis Ford Coppola movie. But just getting the chance to go back, that fantasy of going back into your teenage body with your adult brain and doing things differently was always kind of appealing. So that reverse role thing was the main target. Jim Carrey's in this movie too, as Walter Getz. He did that weird thing where he threw his arm over his shoulder like Ronnie Cox in Deliverance.
Don't remind me about poor Cohagen.
Freaked me out. But there you go. Peggy Sue Got Married.
Thank you, Justin. That was a good one. Mine is another adaptation movie from a book from the 19th century, but it's been done in a few movies. But the one I reference is 2002 is The Count of Monte Cristo. And it's about basically a man who's framed doing a crime, and he's kept in a prison for years, and comes back to get his revenge after he finds some treasure. And it's got Jim Caviezel as
it's great. It's a great movie.
Edmund, and then Guy Pearce is kind of the villainy character that he comes by, and it's funny because it's not really a body switch thing as much as it's a guy who they start out basically as deckhands on a ship, and here he comes back to cultured scene in France as a mysterious nobleman called the Count of Monte Cristo who has this newfound money, and nobody recognizes him except for his ex-girlfriend, his old girlfriend, who ended up marrying the bad guy. It's really interesting the way that, like I say, he kind of starts out poor but becomes super rich and is able to kind of win his way into the crowd there and ultimately get his revenge. And
another great prototypical revenge movie.
Yeah, it's a poor guy getting rich and getting his revenge, kind of like our Trading Places movie here. But that would be The Count of Monte Cristo, and that would be my second pick.
That's a great pick.
And all right, Justin, you have some honorable mentions?
Yeah, I got one. I got a couple honorable mentions here before my final one. I tried to go from the traditional body swap movies.
Yes.
So I tried to stay away from that.
Stay away from Face Off.
Yeah, well, that was my honorable mention, of course, the Face Off, which we covered on one of our earlier shows in season two, I believe. So just go back and check that out, guys. You could make the case that Planet of the Apes is a role reversal movie where a planet where apes evolved from men, Mike.
Impossible.
But I'm going to go back the same year here, Mike, 1983. I'm going to go with Mr. Mom with Michael Keaton.
Oh.
Did I pick one of yours?
No, I think that's there's so many like different permutations of like role reversals, and that's one that didn't even cross my mind. Was like just basically a mom and dad role. That's pretty good.
Well, this one holds a special place in my heart because this, along with Michael Jackson's Thriller, the making of Michael Jackson's Thriller,
Yeah.
were the first two VHS rentals that our family ever got.
Oh wow.
Went to a place in a neighboring town that had like they were popping up in the early 80s, but they weren't
Yeah.
everywhere, so you had to drive to neighboring towns and set up an account. This one was like out of an arcade t-shirt type place.
Oh, I remember those.
They had like 70 movies on the wall, and
Did it have a beaded curtain that separated you from the adult movies?
no,
in the back?
they weren't that sophisticated yet. They
Okay.
had like the big box horror and 20
Yes.
comedies, and that was about it. But my dad picked up making of Michael Jackson's Thriller and this movie, and we were, engrossed with this new technology of a VCR that we could put a movie in that we wanted to watch on our terms. We could pause it, we could rewind it, we could watch it again. It was just as cool. I think that's part of the appeal of it. The movie itself is, I remember those parts vividly because, my dad was a manufacturing guy and he was always hoping to keep his job. And, things weren't good back in the early 80s in manufacturing. And there's always that threat of like losing your job. And, Michael Keaton loses his job in this, I think it was an automotive plant. And he has to go back home and take over the traditional, women's roles of taking care of the kids and ironing and just his take on that. And, his manly spin. Michael Keaton was the ultimate like 80s man.
Yeah.
And using the iron to make grilled cheese and fighting with the kids before their whoopee. He like staples it back together.
I love the trip they take like to the grocery store too.
Yeah.
It's really the classic where he's like there's clerk at the checkout is like saying we need a price check on tampons or something like that. And he's like, no, we don't do that.
Mortified.
Yeah.
He's playing poker with coupons with the neighboring ladies and stuff like that. Just fish out of water of that guy being in that role at that time, which is pretty commonplace now, but at the time that was just kind of revolutionary, really original idea, and just the way he handled that I thought was really funny. So that's Mr. Mom from 1983.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good job. I have a few honorable mentions myself, which luckily you haven't mentioned. All of Me, another Steve Martin movie where
Lily
he
Tomlin,
has
right?
the ghost of Lily Tomlin basically in his head.
Great movie.
Single White Female, another one of those kind of roles is taken over. Is a few of those movies nowadays where it's like a girl takes over another girl's like life, and that one had Bridget Fonda in it, and I think can't remember, is it Ali Sheedy? No, I can't remember the other girl, but anyway,
Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Thank you. There you go. Yeah, Heaven Can Wait, movie we've mentioned before. Where
I had Here Comes Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, and so this is the updated version of Warren Beatty in it, and he switches roles with the star quarterback for the LA Rams.
Yeah,
how about that,
Mr. Farnsworth?
And that's right. And then I want to special mention to a TV episode of Fred Flintstone. You may know the Stooges. I know the Flintstones.
Yeah.
There was an episode where Fred has the Great Gazoo have him switch jobs with Mr. Slate. And, the moral of the story was Mr. Slate's job was really tough. And Fred had a really bad day at work there and instantly wants to be switched back to the way it was. So that would be my last honorable mention. But for my actual number 3 real pick here, Victor Victoria, 1982 Blake Edwards movie.
Wow. Yeah.
Kind of another variation on the Switch kind of thing. Julie Andrews is a kind of not washed up, but just a struggling singer who ends up coming up with an idea with her friend played by Robert Preston, where she dresses up as a man, but also plays a woman. It's really Blake Edwards, so it's going to be convoluted and have a lot of wacky kind of like. It's basically like a Three's Company episode come to life, but it's really well done. There's some good music in it. There's a couple of songs in that movie that really like there's one or two of them that I end up hearing in my head almost like every day. So it's one of those HBO movies again that I saw over and over and over again for like this brief period of time, and it's indelible. It's just in my head. It's just there.
Yep.
And so that would be my, like I said, that'd be my third pick there, Victor Victoria.
There you go.
Whew, I think we beat that list to death.
We sure did.
If you want to get in contact with us, you can go to Grumpy Nostalgia on Instagram. You can also find us by email. Just email us at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. And I believe Justin is really hard at work on our YouTube channel, which is Grumpy Nostalgia. So you can find us there also.
We hope to have Last Action Hero up here in the next week or so. So stay tuned.
Awesome. That would be great to see.
Tell all your dumb friends.
There you go. And tell them, tell them we're here and we're discussing movies, either good or bad. And just thanks for listening. And anything else you want to say, Justin?
Ever make it with an 8?
Yeah. See y'all later.
Bye now.